Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirishan b'mitzvotav v'tivanu nosif v'divrei Torah. Baruch na Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu p'yam Beit Yisrael. V'niyeh anachnu v'tzeitzeinu v'tzeitzeim Beit Yisrael. Kulanu yodea shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha lishma. Baruch atah Adonai lomei Torah le'amo Yisrael.
Amen.
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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol amim. V'natan lanu Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noteinu Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
Blessed art you, Adonai God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandment and has commanded us to gross ourselves in the words of your Torah. Please, Adonai our God, sweeten the words of your Torah in the mouth and in the mouth of your people, the family of Israel. May we and our offspring and the offspring of your people, the house of Israel, all of us know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Blessed art you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to his people, Israel.
Amen.
Amen.
Blessed art you, Adonai, God, King of the universe, who has selected us from all the peoples and gave us his Torah. Blessed art you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Okay?
Amen.
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 All right. So good. We've done the bracha. Kevin, teach us the chofetz.
Okay. Part 16, chapter 1. Okay. You shall not pollute the land wherein you are. And this comes from Bamidbar. This verse forbids us to flatter a wrongdoer. According to the Gaonim, Baal Tosfos, and Rabbi Ben Kivro. If you know that Reuven dislikes someone, the correct thing to do is to admonish Reuven for his hatred. By speaking Lashon Torah to Reuven about the enemy, in order to find favor in his eyes, you violate this prohibition. A listener to Lashon Torah can also be guilty of this prohibition. It is very common for people to nod their heads or vocally show approval when someone tells them Lashon Hara. This flattery is termed chanifus and is a very serious offense. Okay, should we just discuss that a bit?
Sure, with pleasure.
Pollute the land. I mean, that's a very, sounds like a serious offense. Pollute the land, you know? Like
Sure.
Words, that's just show the power of words, that words are more powerful than we think. The effect of the negative words, and positive ones too, obviously.
Sure.
So you shouldn't, obviously, and people do that, and I've probably also done that in the past. You talk to someone badly, negatively, because we think we're big deals, we have our ego. We talk because we want to be in their good books by being foolish, and I'm talking to myself here. I mean, I haven't done this for a long time, but we mustn't, we obviously, and at the end of the day, I tell people, what's the point of and I've told people here as well, and I always talk to myself, what are you achieving by talking negatively about someone? What are you achieving? Unless the oak try to kill you, you're allowed to tell someone about it, of course. But oak you sold millions of dollars, and you need to discuss it. But if you just talk negatively, I said to some, what are you achieving? And I've never got an answer. They can't answer me. What are you achieving by talking negatively about someone? Unless it's a constructive purpose.
I think
Well, America will answer that as impeachment. All right, sorry, I don't know if anyone got that. I apologize. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sure. No, okay. Damon, what did you want to say about that?
No, I was going to say is that the standard defense to Lashon Hara, Kevin, is exactly what you think. People say, but it's true. But the thing of it is exactly what you said. Rabbi Salanta said the same thing. If it's not constructive and it's not helpful, even if it's true, what's the point?
Exactly. What is it? What are you achieving? We think we're fantastic. We're better than them. Is that why we're superior? We have on the moral high ground.
100%.
Yeah.
But you know what was interesting with what you said is not so much just the talking, because that you can refrain from, or you can try. The problem is what you said is the nodding. So you're at someone's house and they say something negative, then you feel like, because it's true, you kind of feel like an idiot if you don't nod your head. So you nod your head in confirmation, and that's to me is like it's difficult to get out of, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very tricky. It puts yourself in a compromising position.
Well,
so theoretically, you shouldn't really go back to those people.
Well, you can walk away from the table. I know it's not so easy. Walk away from the table, just like hum to yourself or pretend not to hear, or just don't believe what they say. That's it.
You know,
Yeah, I don't believe anything anybody says anyway now. I become very, very skeptical. All right.
Interestingly enough, Kev, in the video service on the Yom Kippur davening, it uses the term character assassination by looking approvingly, or when somebody walks past and somebody rolls their arms like this, like that. That is equal to Lashon Hara. That calls it visual facial cues of character assassination.
Okay. Non-verbal communication.
Yeah.
I think it's even worse because it's deceptive. The other one, at least, is blatant outright. You know.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold on, baby, before you go,
Yeah.
on that topic of that, you guys have been married, right? When your wife has a certain look, non-verbal, that's all you need. Just that look. Oh, well, okay. Before we go, the reason I was up so late last night is I was doing a lot of research on the Gezerah Shava. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I found some very interesting things. I actually want to try to read something to you guys because this explained to me, and I sort of got it a lot better now. Okay.
Tell us now.
Okay, this is from, I actually got this from outorah.org. Okay, I'll send you the link. It's by Rabbi Jack Abramovitz. It's Torah Mythology number 2, the Gezerah Sheva. A Gezerah Sheva is a tradition of a known rule applying to a new case based upon identical words or phrase in both cases. For example, the Torah uses the word ba-ma-do in its proper time, which referring to the Korban Pesach, Numbers 9, verse 2. And when referring to the daily Korban Tamid, Numbers 28, verse 2, just as the Korban Tamid was brought in its proper time, even on Shabbos, so too the Korban Pesach was offered in its proper time. This is even on Shabbos. The Gezerah Sheva is put forth by the Talmud in Tractate Pesachim on page 66a. Another example, we are told that a paid watchman, this is what we did earlier, okay, who has had a subject in his care stolen, must take an oath that he didn't lay his hands on what he was given to watch. The Talmud in Shavuos 47a clarifies that the oath is only between the two parties, not between the heirs, and if one of the parties should die before a case is settled, the details of the oath are not told to us regarding an unpaid watchman, but the Talmud applies them in that case as well, based upon the Gezerah Sheva of the phrase Im lo shelach yado b'meleches rahu, which means that he did not lay hands on his fellow's property, which is found regarding the paid guardian in Exodus 22 verse 10 and regarding an unpaid guardian in Exodus 22 verse 7. Unlike the Kol V'chomer, which is strictly logical argument that anyone can propose, the Gezerah Sheva can only be put forth based upon the received tradition.
Oh, so that's brilliant.
Okay, so I've got that. I was up to 4 o'clock this morning learning, by the way. So I'm a little tired. I found a few other sources that explain it a lot clearer. Because the one thing I had, Damon, you're great, but I needed examples. There's even a better one I found. I know I'm not leading the shiur today, but
no, I'm listening. You've got my captive attention, and in fact, the example of the Gezerah Sheva, which was perfect. It's something we learned about a shomer, a guardian.
Yeah.
What else? That's amazing.
Okay, so there was another one I found here. This is, I'm just going to bring it across to my screen here. I'll send you all the stuff so that you guys can have it. This is for Practical Guide to Torah Learning by David Landsman. Okay, reprinted with permission. Okay, this was 995. And I just want to get down to the Gezerah Sheva because this is it's the 13 principles of Rav Yishmael, but in detail. It covers Kol V'chomer. It's quite interesting. I'll send it to you guys. It's really good. Okay. Let me just find if I can find it quickly. It's quite a way down here because I was reading it. Okay, yeah. This is Gezerah Sheva. Okay, this is quite interesting. An analogy based on the use of the same term in two separate cases. This is actually written in a way that's like, in his own words, when the Torah utilizes a specific term in one case and then uses that term in another case, even though the latter has no logical relationship to the former one, we can draw an analogy between the two laws. Use of this principle allows for the creation of an entire halachic system based on a minimum of text. On the surface, Gezerah Sheva would seem to be completely illogical, as if we were drawing an analogy between the traits of fruits and vegetables. However, if one accepts the axiom that the Torah does not use superfluous words, one can conclude the repetition of a specific term in another context in an indication that comparison can be drawn. There are two types of Gezerah Sheva used in the Talmud. A, as a means of clarifying text. Okay. For example, the Talmud in Kiddushim 2a discusses the Mishnah's ruling that a woman can be betrothed through money. The basis for money being used as a means of acquisition, in this case, is derived through the Gezerah Sheva. The Torah in Bereshit 23, verse 13, states that Abraham purchased the burial field for Ephron. He said, "I have given the money for the field. Take it," and it's got the word kach, from me. In the verse concerning betrothal, the Torah, Devarim 23, verse 13, states, when a man takes yikach, a woman, the use of the verb take is the latter case is compared to in the case of the former case. Just as money is effective as a means of taking a field, so is it effective as a means of taking a wife. Okay? B, this is very interesting. As a means of establishing halacha not mentioned in the text. For example, in Talmud Shavuot 47a, rules that the heirs of the shomer shachar, a paid watchman, are not obligated to swear that their father has not, this is the same one as we learned, has not used an item that is being paid to God, a vow that the father would have to make if the item had been accidentally destroyed while in the custodianship. Through the use of the Gezerah Sheva, okay, it is determined that the ruling applies to the heirs of the Shomer Chanim, an unpaid watchman as well. For the Torah in Shmos 22 verse 7 and 22 verse 10 uses the phrase that he has not used his neighbor's property regarding both the paid and unpaid watchman. Once the law freeing the heirs of the unpaid watchman has been derived from the Torah, it can be applied to the heirs of the unpaid watchman based on the use of the same phrase. And then it goes, this thing goes on. It's fantastic. Gezerah Sheva has a number of restrictions to govern its usage. Okay, this is the mufna, okay, which is open. Therefore, no deduction or inferences were made from the words being compared. The redundancy of the word is taken as an indication that they have utilized to the point, to the comparison drawn. For example, the Talmud Shabbos 64a draws a comparison between the laws of ritual impurity of the corpse to those of an insect, noting that the comparison is not possible between that similar because the similarity terminology is open. Did you guys want to go on?
Good.
I can send you the document. This is actually, there were a couple.
Can you send it to us?
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. Damon, this thing is, yeah, it's exactly what we're learning. And it gives, and there's a few of them I found. I spent like till 4 o'clock this morning doing this. I was just so tired of not understanding what the Gezerah Sheva was.
Fantastic. Please send it to the group. And you've given some wonderful examples, and Kevin wanted examples.
Now, there's more.
So did Arthur. They were both asking for examples, and I think that's very good for you because it gives you examples. That's what you needed.
Yeah, it's what I needed to get my brain. I'm exhausted this morning. I must admit, I had 5 hours sleep. But no, I was just so drawn into it last night. I couldn't switch off. I was like reading these documents, it's like, and it was hard to find it. Trying to find stuff that actually doesn't tell you the same stuff, which doesn't make, which is like, it was very difficult. I went through pages and pages and pages and pages. Eventually I found stuff that said, okay, this is what people actually wrote. Now, because I was looking for examples. I mean, like you said, I understand the concept, it's 2 words, but how does it link up? There was one that was very interesting about, they drew, this is from what I remember reading last night, they drew a comparison between the Yom Tov on Pesach, I think it was Pesach, okay, and they said, things you're allowed to do on a Yom Tov, and they actually drew the comparison between that and other Yom Tovim, like Sukkot and all that stuff. And that's where they got the law from. They found similarities and joined it together. That's where a lot of the laws come from. They get 2 things and bring it together. And that's what I now understand. It was similar wording.
So what Damon said yesterday, which was spot on, he said that every Gezerah Sheva is different.
Yeah.
So So what you saw now with the various different examples, you saw every single one is different, but the commonality is the fact that they're superfluous words, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what you were saying.
Yeah, it's just basically
Now you saw it in the different examples.
Yeah, what I learned last night, I'm just trying to see if I can get some more quick stuff here, and I'm going to try to find it and send it to you guys because it was really, really interesting last night. I mean, I'm not one to stay up to 4 o'clock in the morning doing this stuff. It's not my what's the name, but it was just, I think I found something, and Damon knows me. When I start getting involved, I just want to see, there was one here that I had earlier in the meeting.
Sure, Arthur, I'm proud of you, man. That's a lot.
Yeah, no, well done, eh?
Yeah, no, I just did it because I was so tired of having to think, well, what is Damon talking about? I don't understand the word. And I said, okay, there was a couple of very good examples, just lines I found.
So please put it on the Bava Kamma group so I can look at it.
I just wanted to get your permission. It's very interesting. There's a PDF. There's
no, listen, Arthur, I'm so grateful to you because you know the only reason the topic came up is there was one example.
Yeah.
And now that you've given many, it helps you and Kevin and me even understand the principle.
Yeah. This is where I got this word. It's Gevurah Sheva, from the similarity of words, identical with the second rule of Hillel. Okay, it's the argument from analogy. Biblical passages containing synonyms or homonyms are subject. However, made much they. So I just want to zoom into this. It's very tiny. So this is tiny. Let me see if I can zoom into the screen here because it's like reading. Okay, let me just zoom in here. Make it a bit. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, that's a bit better. Now let's go down slightly. Okay. Arguments for analogy. Biblical passages containing synonyms and homonyms are subject. However, bring it onto my other screen. So I'll be looking at you. There we go. That's better. However much they differ in the other's respect to identical definitions and applications. If a similar word or expression occurs in two places in the scripture, the ruling for each place may be applied to the other. Similar words cannot be original, but it must be passed to the master, to the disciple, originating from Moshe, to where Hashem taught in Mount Sinai. In strictly limited cases, Sinaitic tradition teaches that two independent laws or cases are meant to shed light upon one another. The indication that the two laws are completely complementary, can be seen in two ways. The same or similar word appearing in both cases. The word in its proper time. That's what I learned the other night about Pesach. The word in its proper time is understood to indicate that the daily offering must be brought even on Shabbat. Similarly, the words in the context of the Pesach offering should be interpreted to mean that the offered in, even if appointed day 2 falls on Shabbat. When the two different topics are placed next to each other, which is called a comparison, e.g., many laws offered even if the appointed day 2, many laws regarding the technical process of divorce and betrothal are derived from one another because the scripture mentions divorce and betrothal in the same phrase, saying she shall depart through divorce and become betrothed to another man. The juxtaposition implies that the two changes of marriage status are accomplished through similar legal process. Okay, that wasn't what I thought it was. Sorry, that was my mistake. Because I read something. I'm just trying to find the source of what I read a little while ago. I'm sorry for taking so much time, guys. I just want to just.
That's fine. Send it to us, mate.
Yeah, I just did a lot of.
Because you know what? It's easier to read it, just like you reading it, or I'm reading it. It makes more sense when someone reads it themselves. Also.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let me just see here. I think.
Amazing, Arthur. You did a great job. It's exactly what we need. Exactly.
And just send it to us.
Send the link, Arthur. Put the link on the group.
Okay, I'll go find all my work.
Well, I have to read it.
Okay, I'll send all the link to the group. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, mate.
Listen, Arthur, well done. Seriously, well done.
Yeah, I was just tired of looking and going, I thought, okay, let me research it.
That's exactly what Hashem enjoys. He enjoys the fact that the person puts an effort to work out what's going on. It really gives Hashem a lot of
especially in the early hours of the morning until 4 o'clock.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
But it's sort of like an addiction. Like when you start, it's like when you're browsing the net, right? And then you find something interesting, you just can't put it down. It's like, okay, I found this, and things are just Hashem was just giving me stuff. one after another. I
Nice.
was like, wow, because I couldn't find anything. I was like looking at the same stuff before. Okay, I know that Damon told me. Yes, I understand Damon. Yeah, this is a guy explaining it to me. This is a guy who's written it in an example of what I want. To
And you know
explain.
what? Sometimes the way I give it over is not as clear as somebody else because we all resonate with different patterns of speech.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Listen, let's start a new
And it's
link.
also just-
Send it through.
Okay.
Sorry,
it's also
Gav, I
coming
didn't
in from a
interrupt.
different angle, right? You must understand
Yeah.
sometimes when you hear something, maybe the angle that Damon's coming, there's nothing wrong. It's very good because I understood it perfectly, but sometimes people don't. And you have to hear it from a different angle. And you see a different angle, and all of a sudden the light goes on.
That's basically what I did.
But-
I got like 10 different points of views from each person who had written it and
Right.
and then
Will you send all of the links? Will you give me all of them?
yeah, look, there was the OU terminology was fantastic. I was going through the Binyan Av yesterday. I was going through something about something I'm trying to think of the terminology now, what it was. So my mind goes blank now. I was going through the 13 rules of Rabbi Yishmael last night. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And I was going through Klal Uprat and Prat Klal and all that stuff. It was quite interesting.
Very
And I
interesting.
was actually understanding, that's how because a lot of the time when you go through the stuff, you sort of read it, but you don't actually say it. Like the Prat, that Klal Uprat, which is taking a thing that's broad and being specific. For example, when they talk about animals and they actually mention sheep and a cow, okay? The klal is the actual beginning part, the part that's broad, the animals.
So Arthur's completely correct. We learn just before we end this link, we learn all the principles we learn are klal to prat. So klal is the generalities, and prat is the specificity of it. So we always learn general concepts, and then specifically the application in a very narrow focus. So we learn macro to macro. That's the appeal, that reason why people learn daf yomi, by the way, is it gives you a macro general understanding of the context of everything, even if you're only chapping 40%. But over 8 years, you're getting a general context, which nothing will replace the pattern of that, of understanding where everything fits into everything else. And then the next time people learn, they don't generally do daf yomi, they go pratim specifics. All right, guys, okay? So basically, Ravina replied to Rav Achi of Difti, Rav Nehemiah ben Zechariah asked this question of Abaya, and Abaya answered him that the ton of this brisa derives it. In other words, the susceptibility of a mat to corpse tumah from the following law of sheretz through a logical derivation. Okay, and as regards the derivation mentioned in the brisa itself, Abaya amends the brisa, and this is what the Tana actually says. From where is it known to us that a mat contracts tumah in the case of contact with a sheretz? It is a logical derivation, the kol v'chomer, if small earthenware vials, which are pure, tahor, in the case of a zav, and while they tahor in the case of the zav, you remember because the opening is too small for a zav to infect, because he cannot get into the inner contents. So if it remains pure, the earthenware vials in the case of the zav, but become tameh in the contact with the sheretz, because we already learned that a sheretz, you only need a lentil grain's worth to have fallen into the liquid, which even a small opening would allow that susceptibility. It becomes impure. So far, we know that it's impure in the case of a sheretz. So then, this is where the kol v'chomer comes. This is the first part. Isn't it logically compelling that a mat which becomes impure in the case of a zav? Why? Because we learn very clearly that there's the term matrat, which means whenever anybody that's a zav leans on a couch or a mat or a chair, it becomes infected. It becomes tameh, infected in the contact with the sheretz, meaning that a mat or anything, if it's going to certainly become more infectious than the zav, isn't it logical that it's going to make a mat infected in the case of a sheretz? Fine. So that's the logical derivation. Now, I just want to cover a little bit of ground. So what it's saying is here, the Gemara notes that concerning the Gezerah Shava. Okay, so this is where it's going to bring it up. And I just want to share my screen in a minute. So the Gemara continues. Then from where do we know the fact that a mat contracts tumah, impurity, in the case of contact with human force? That was the question mark. It's derived from the following Gezerah Shava. And I'm going to show you the sources now, guys. I'm just going to tell you the wording first. There's the word garment and leather, which is stated in the passage of Sheretz. And garment and leather is also stated in the passage of a human corpse. So what happens here is that it establishes a Gezerah Shava, and it basically compares the laws of the two passages. So just as in the context of garment and leather stated in the passage of a Sheretz, a mat too is tameh, impure, as derived from the Kal V'chomer in the Brasa. So too in the context of garment and leather, which is stated in the passage of a human corpse, a mat too is tameh. That's where it's making the Gezerah Shava. So let me share my screen and show you where it's found. Okay. Just hang on a second, guys. Okay. Just bring up the sources. Everybody understands so far what we're getting at quickly. Guys?
See it on the big screen. See it.
Okay, but Kev, do you understand the Kal V'chomer?
Say it again. My mind's not.
All right,
I'm not 100% focused today. Say it again. Sorry, I heard it, but I wasn't.
Okay.
Didn't sink in.
Say it again.
All right. All right. So I'm going to quickly say it again. So what it's saying is that, listen, a zav is less hectic than a sheretz.
Okay.
Why? Because it's not going to infect any earthenware container.
Yeah. Can't get in. Yeah.
So if a sheretz is more hectic and would make a earthenware container infected, because the amount that has to can easily fall in as the size of a lentil grain, then we see a sheretz is more hectic. So then a case where something less hectic than a zav definitely uses the term matrat, infects anything that it lies on, like a mat, a couch, a chair, etc., bedding. What the term matrat is that when it infects that sort of bedding, and it's less hectic than a sheretz, surely a sheretz is definitely going to infect a mat if a zav infects a mat. Fine. So now that we've established that first part of the Kal V'chomer, it says, look, then we need to establish a Gezerah Shava. So what's the Gezerah Shava? It uses the word, very simply, garment and leather in the passage of the sheretz. And it uses the term again, garment and leather, in the passage of a human corpse. So what it's trying to do is establish a Gezerah Shava comparing the laws of the two passages. So accordingly, just as in the context of garment and leather stated in the passage of the sheretz, a mat is tameh, and we know this from the Kal V'chomer anyway. So too in the context of garment and leather stated in the passage of a human corpse, a mat also is tameh. So I'm going to show you where the Gezerah Shava is found. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. I should to read it a bit. It's let me just tell you everybody where it is. It's in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 32 and 30. Yeah, just go through that.
And anything on which one of them falls when dead shall be unclean, be it any article of wood or a cloth or a skin or a sack. Any such article that can be put to use shall be dipped in water, and it shall remain unclean until evening. Then it shall be clean.
Excellent. So that particular word, it's actually garment and leather. But obviously the Safaria translates it slightly differently. But the actual wording in Hebrew is garment and leather. So when we say a cloth is a garment or a skin. And leather is an article obviously made of skin. So anything to do with skin is leather, and any sack or article is actually considered a garment. Fine. So that's the first part of the Gezerah Shava. That's with regards to the sheretz. Okay. Now I want you, Gavin, to read then this part of Numbers by Midbar, chapter 31, verse 20.
Okay. You shall also cleanse every cloth, every article of skin, everything made of goat's hair, and every object of wood.
Great. So you can see that the terms is relating to what? Look at the previous verse. What is it relating to?
Corpse.
The corpse. Yes, guys, it's not rocket science. It says the word corpse. So in the second case, it's making the Gezerah Shava with the corpse, according to linking it to the first case, where there's a Gezerah Shava with the sheretz. So
I don't see the corpse in the second case. Sorry, Damon. Just go back down. I don't see the corpse part.
Yeah.
In the first part, I do.
Yeah, no,
Is
no,
that
no,
the
no,
first part?
no, Kabb, just wait. I'm explaining it. I want to explain it. Just give me a sec. No problem. Leviticus Vayikra, chapter 11, verse 32. Now, this is talking about a sheretz. How do we know it's talking about a sheretz? It said, for those unclean among you, all swarming things, whoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean and evening. And last time I checked, human beings don't have wings to swarm. So it's talking about the gecko, the land crocodile, the lizard, the sheretz, any sort of mole, mouse, etc. So in Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 11, it's talking about sheretz. Okay, that's the introductory part. The Gezerah Shava is going to come on verse 32. Does that make sense? On the chapter of 11. So there it's talking about in the context of what it infects. It says when it touches an article of wood, cloth, or skin. Skin from an animal is obviously leather. Cloth is obviously a garment, fabric. So you'll notice the article of wood, cloth, skin, or sack, etc. shall be dipped in water, shall remain unclean until evening, then it shall be clean. Fine. So this first thing in Vayikra is the procedure of the word garment and leather in Hebrew, specifically for a sheretz. The Gezerah Shava then links to the word specifically for garment and leather for a human corpse. Because you shall clean every cloth, that's a garment, every article of skin, that's leather, everything made of goat's hair, and every object of wood. Same wording. Now, what does this have to do with? Who has slain a person or touched a corpse. So the second one has to do with human corpse. The first one is a sheretz. Guys, are you
okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin?
Who has slain?
Yeah.
Where's this? I say a captive who has slain a person.
Kevin, what we're trying to do is a Gezerah Shava are common words. So in order to make a link between a sheretz and a corpse, the in Vayikra in Leviticus chapter 11, the first thing it does is introduce the halachas of how you deal with a sheretz.
Okay.
How do we know? Because it's mentioning lizard, mouse, mole, great lizards of every variety, etc. Then it's talking about that if it falls on any article of wood, clothing, fabric, leather, because the skin of an animal is leather. Okay, and that's the process of cleaning it. So the first thing in Leviticus is talking about Vayikra is the halacha of what to do if something infects, if a sheretz infects an article of clothing. Does that make sense? That's the first thing. Then it's using the same word, garment, leather, skins, goats, etc., etc. On the second part, what happens if a human corpse infects these articles? So what's repeated there is the words of garment and leather, every cloth, every article of skin. So that's the Gezerah Shava of the superfluous words, the open and unnecessary words, extra words that are used to explain both sheretz and the corpse. And therefore, there's a link between sheretz and corpse in halacha. Do you see that, Kev?
Well, because
And Damon, I do notice this, it's not air contamination. Oh, they're actually physically touching or actually physically killing someone. It says there, who slain a person or touched a corpse shall cleanse himself. Not somebody who's in the same tent.
Now I hear that,
Yes.
but the halachas with regards, but the halachas with regards to air contamination are dealt with here in Numbers chapter 19, verse. This is the ritual: when a person dies in a tent, whoever enters the tent and whoever is in the tent shall be unclean for 7 days. Every open vessel, and it doesn't matter whether it's an open vessel or let me just
okay, so it covers both.
Chapter 32.
Mm.
No, Art, I'll tell you where it is. It's in chapter 31, verse 20, which says as follows, right? In Numbers 31, chapter 20, it says, every garment, every leather, utensil, everything made of goat material that is infected within the area. Does that make sense? So a tumor infects in 2 ways. That either by physically touching or by air contamination. We've learned that already.
Is there a distance?
Yeah.
Is there a distance? Like, for example, if the body's outside, how does that affect in radius? Or is it only if the person dies inside a tent and it's a whole content of the tent? Or what is it?
Yeah, it's both. There's a certain amount of amos, tefachim, that's around a person that has that area. But it's like what we've learned with the coronavirus. It's much more intense if you're coughing around a place where there's no escape of air. Does that make sense? In fact, we could live in a more clear time to illustrate the point.
So
I think it's 4 amos, because when I go to a funeral, I think I have to keep 4 amos away from the nearest grave.
Yes, I think in open air it is 4 amos. In a tent, if a tent is bigger, that somehow might make it more infectious. Because it's in an enclosed area. I don't know. I'm not a Kohen. But mate, I thought you brought up a good point in terms of touching, but whether you touch or have air contamination. But Kevin, do you understand the Gezerah Shava? If you don't, tell me, because if you don't know what's going on.
No, it's comparing the sherets to the corpse. Contamination. Is that the similarities?
No.
But they both have to be cleansed.
No, it's using extra words. The word garment and leather in the term of sheret, is superfluous. Why is it superfluous? Because it says anything that the sheret touches is infected. Everything. I don't mention specifics. That's about the claw and the prop. This is exactly what's
I understand it now. That's understandable.
Yeah, so in claw, it means everything. If I say to you everything that a sheret touches, it's going to infect. What I need to mention specifics for. Therefore, it leaves those specific words, garment and leather.
They don't have to be there. Not necessarily.
They don't have to be there. Then we look at a human corpse. We learned that in a tent, in Bamidbar, chapter 31, verse 20, in a tent, it infects everything. When it touches it, it infects everything. So what do you have to mention garment and leather for with regard to a human corpse? You don't.
And does it say everything?
Because you put the general principle, you put the claw, so now you don't have to mention the prat. So the specificity of it is free on to be able to be used together to come out with a halacha. And just like a sheret is contaminated, so to a human corpse, if it touches a mat, is contaminated. Does that make sense? So far.
Kev, you know what? I'll send you some stuff that I learned about the cloud and the prat. That'll help you so much in understanding the. The problem I had earlier with the thing is I couldn't understand by the word superfluous words, and then when I read the cloud and the prat, which means from a general to specific. If you got something general like the word anything, and it covers anything, why would you mention specific because you've covered it.
It's not necessary.
So the
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
superfluous words are not anything but the actual specific. So, like he's saying in the WhatsApp in there at the moment with the sherets, right? Okay, where if it says anything, so anything of that size of a lentil touches your clothing. Okay, and if it's saying touching anything, it covers your clothing. Why is it saying clothing specifically? Why is it saying
Said
skin,
everything.
leather? Okay,
Doesn't have to be mentioned specific things.
that's your comparison. Yeah.
Correct.
So okay, so then it goes on with the corpse, right? It says the same thing again. Anything it touches, and then it says again the clothing and the skin or the leather, whatever. So what it's saying is the superfluous words are not useless words. It's once you say the word anything else that is superfluous,
Everything's covered.
everything's covered. So why is it saying? It's like we learned earlier when it goes from it repeats things twice. Why does the Torah repeat things twice? Similar concept. Okay. I'll send you the link from OU. It's very interesting. The cloud and the prat, very interesting, and it goes into all the different things. And once you read through that, I read through most of them. When you go
Let's
back,
get that on track.
I understand.
Let's get
Okay.
back
It'll come to you.
Where's Gavin?
I have no idea. He's vanished off for a minute.
I'm here.
Are you there?
I'm listening. Sorry. I'm listening. Carry on.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right, so listen, that concept of Klau and Prat was essential for Arthur to explain because that allows you to understand that when it says if anything, if it touches anything, it's going to be infected, why it frees the words for leather and clothing. Because if you said everything, why do you need those extra words? It's exactly what shows you that those words are freely available to be applied in another context.
You see, now I understand the word freely. Now I understand the word freely.
Okay, so let's go on, guys. Let's cover a little bit of ground quickly. The Gemara notes concerning this Gezerah Shava, it must be that the expression garment and leather is free, superfluous, in brackets it says, and thus available to establish the Gezerah Shava. By the way, the term free is explained in Nida 22b. You guys saw that it uses the word free. Okay, but free just means freely available, basically. It's not special. Okay. So it must be that the expression garment and leather is free and available and superfluous to the exact meaning of the parsha. In other words, it doesn't add any clarity to it, more than what we've already established, and therefore available to establish a Gezerah Shava. For if it is not free, then one could object to deriving a law of a human corpse from that of sherets as follows. We could actually make the following logical conclusion. We can say, what comparison can you make to sherets, which conveys tumah, even if the sheret's material is only in the amount of a lentil? Can you then say that the law found in the case of sherets must also apply in the case of the human corpse, which does not convey tumah if the corpse material is in the amount of a lentil, but is at least in the amount of an olive? So what it's saying there is if you're talking about corpse and corpse touching tumah, what we actually are saying is that sherets is even a bit more stringent. Why is it a bit more stringent? Because you need a smaller amount of a sheret to infect a liquid, food or drink, etc., than you would with regards to a human corpse. Because let's study this. If we never learned the law of earthenware containers being open in a tent, we said by human touch, a zav can't infect a small earthenware vial where the entrance of the lid is very small. And then it was from that point that we learned that a corpse can also infect by air contamination. But if you're just looking on the touching aspect, say we were only looking exactly according to Arthur's question on the touching aspect, a sheret is more hectic because something the size of a lentil, like a little gecko's tail fill in, you have to smash that container and throw away the contents and even smash the container. But a human corpse, you need the size of an olive, kazayit, okay? So that's one thing that we learn. And what's the proof of it? That to Arthur's question about the fact that we consider air contamination, well, we do it from the following basis. I'm going to show you now. Because I think Arthur's question was a good one. Okay. Yeah. This is the ritual. When a person dies in a tent, whoever enters the tent and whoever is in the tent shall be unclean for 7 days. And every open vessel with no lid fastened down shall be unclean. Which is what this Gemara brings, proving that air contamination is a very serious factor, as serious as touching the pulpit. Okay, but it was a good question. All right, just quickly, the Gemara confirms the supposition. In truth, the expression garment and leather found in the passage of Sheretz is certainly free, as will now be shown. Sheretz is legally compared to semen. I tell you what